I just watched the new found footage horror movie that was added to Tubi. The Mitchin Murders is set in the 90s. An amateur documentary duo set out to solve mysterious murders that happened in Mitchin 4 years prior. Now I've got to say, this movie was a miss for me. The crime aspects weren't super engaging. At some points the 90s aesthetic looked pretty good, but there was other points in the movie where it looked like somebody had rubbed Vaseline over the lens. I will say, however, this might be down to Tubi's video compression, but some of the scenes looked actually bad on my TV. I did double check and they do look a lot better on my phone. This film feels a lot like a true crime investigation, but the investigation from our journalists is kinda weak. The scenes that are supposed to be shocking and brutal are shot really awkwardly. I don't know how to describe it, it just looks really amateur, which is disappointing. I hate being negative doing reviews, but I do have to be honest, and I really didn't enjoy this one.
This out. I'm gonna give you guys a little bonus. Alright, that's about as raunchy as I'm gonna get.
The dating show killer. Back in the 60s, there was this dating show that aired on ABC. The whole concept of the show was featured a woman. She asked 3 men questions without seeing their faces, and at the end of the show, she would pick out which one she would want to date. And there was an episode where an actual serial killer was featured on the show.
No way.
And nobody knew anything. His name was Rodney Alcala.
Number 1, would you say hello to Cheryl, please?
That's him.
We're gonna have a great time together, Cheryl. Okay, and here we go.
Bachelor number 1, what's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime.
What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good.
Crazy thing is, she ended up choosing Rodney to be her date at the end of the show.
Fuck.
So boom, right? The show ends. They go backstage. When they're having like an actual genuine conversation that's not being filmed, Cheryl will go on to say that Rodney became hella creepy. That charm that he had switched off.
It was just for show?
Exactly. And he
For the
became a
camera?
fucking creep. And then he was like, I think it would be a good idea if you come out with me tonight so I can show you a night that you'll never forget. And then she was like, maybe not. Rejected him. Which kind of saved her life, because if the show had done a background check, this motherfucker had already killed 4 people and an 80-year-old girl years before actually going on the show. He was arrested and convicted for like 3 years, and he was on parole. So what he would do to get his victims, he would go to bars, tell women that he's like a fashion photographer and he wants them to take pictures.
Where the did this movie come from? And why had I never heard of it before? I was scrolling through Amazon Prime the other day watching trailers, and I landed on this film. The trailer looked interesting, so we put it on. And I have to say that this is a really, really good film. My name's Ricky, I love horror movies, and this is Hippopotamus. Directed by Edward A. Palmer, this film was released in 2018. So this movie centers around a woman who wakes up in a room with a toilet, a sink, a chair, and a handbag. She's only got a tank top on and a pair of little shorts. Standing in this room with her, there is a guy who introduces himself and says she will remain in this room until she falls in love with him. Every time she falls asleep, her memory is wiped. So when she wakes up the next day, she wakes up in this room that she doesn't know. The same guy's there, and he says the same thing. That's all I'm going to give you about this film. This film took me in directions I never expected it to go. And this movie will make you question everything. Every decision the characters make, everything that they say, everything that they do, you question. This is a real, true psychological horror. It's psychological horror at its best, in my opinion. The acting in this movie is spot on. They do some really interesting things in this movie. It's almost like they want to make you aware that you are watching a movie. When they cut from scene to scene in certain parts, you can see behind the stage. And it's almost like, for that instance, they want you to know that they are filming this on a set. They have deliberately overdubbed the actors' voices with the actors' voices. So it looks like they filmed the entire film and then they've gone back and overdubbed all of the dialogue, and it's not matched up perfectly. So it's like they've almost made this film in a way so you know that what you're watching is fiction. It's a very interesting way to make a film, and it's a very interesting way to tell a story, because when you think about this story, it's about who to trust. This movie is narrated by the guy that has kidnapped this girl, so it brings up the unreliable narrator trope. But what it's really saying is, can we trust anything about this film? It's very interesting. It's a very original film. It's a wild film, one that I will definitely watch again because I feel like it needs 2 viewings. But yeah, this film come out of nowhere, and this is why I love cinema. This is why I love horror. There are so many horror films that have been made that I still haven't discovered. And it's films like this that get me really excited about that. And it's films like this that make me excited to make my own film. If you've never seen this film before, definitely check it out because it is very, very good.
I saw a video today of this man at like a press conference kind of thing, and he was at one point like pretty high ranked, or like made it pretty high up in the Air Force. He was some sort of like electrical engineer, and he was telling this story about 30 years ago. He was brought into this group for NASA to, there's something going on with their lunar satellite. It like wasn't receiving. He walked into this room and there was scientists from all over the world. He's like, this is strange for NASA to have scientists from all over the world. And then he was debriefed by this one guy. He said the guy, when he was presenting this stuff, he was like kind of nervous, and he's like, these are pictures that we have from the dark side of the moon.
They have pictures?
There's a base camp on the dark side of the moon, and he was showing pictures of all these buildings, mushroom shaped buildings. He said it's top secret. And so like he came out and was like, I've been waiting for them to talk about this news for 30 years and they haven't done it yet, and I hope by me saying this they'll bring that out.
That were to be true, that would change everything.
He
That would be so.
He said it was a
stinking
massive
scary.
base camp.
Some Saw actors requested that their traps be real in order to feel real pain so they could get more authentic reactions for their performances. For example, Costas Mandylor, aka Mark Hoffman, wanted to use real shards of glass for the glass coffin trap. That way, when he slammed his back into them, he would feel the real scrapings and his reaction would be more authentic. However, the props department said absolutely not, we will not be doing that. But this isn't even the first time it happened, because in Saw 4, the same actor, Costas Mandylor, was being tied up in a chair. And he would frequently complain that the restraints were not tight enough and that the gag was not tight enough either. He claims he wanted it to look authentic, but the director of the film had this to say. Costas is an actor that likes to be bound, so we had to tie his restraints very tight and put a gag on him. Some might call this method acting. I, however, would call it bringing your outside hobbies into the workplace and saying inside thoughts on the outside, which I don't think you should be doing. And it's really funny because if you look at the behind the scenes of when they're putting the gag on him for this, he is smiling the entire time. Like giant ear-to-ear smile going on.
Read the reviews. Do you guys see him too? Who's the man in the wind? My girlfriend moved out 3 weeks ago. My cat Ruck was really close to her, and now that she's gone, I can tell he's a bit lonely. Especially when I'm at work. I came home a few times to find my curtains ripped up or all the toilet paper in shreds. The last straw was when I came home after working late to find he had clawed a hole the size of a dinner plate into the side of the sofa. I decided I had to do something about it. I tried different toys, even catnip, but nothing worked. One night while browsing Amazon, I saw a pet camera. It's a tiny camera that records your pet on a live feed so you can monitor their behavior while you're away. It even has an audio function so you can talk to them. Sounded silly, but hey, I love my furry dude, so I bought it. I got overnight shipping and installed it immediately. I decided to set it up in my bedroom as that was where Rug dwelled most. My first day at work, I think I checked the camera 30 times. When I spoke into the microphone, Rug seemed to be happier and I noticed there was no destruction around the house. By day 4, I figured I'd solve the problem with Rug. That leads me to right now. About 30 minutes ago, I climbed in bed with Ruck, ready to close my eyes when my phone buzzed. A notification from the pet cam. I almost ignored it, sure I'd triggered the thing, but I opened it anyway. What I saw made my grip tighten on the phone. Instead of a video of myself in bed, I saw a man, tall, gangly with pale skin and large eyes. He was moving into my room with exaggerated steps like a sneaking cartoon character. He got right up to the lens, so close I could almost smell his rotten breath, and he smiled. I immediately paused the video, terrified. I looked at the spot where the man should have been standing, but there was no one there. I went onto Amazon and found the pet cam and read the reviews, hoping for some weird glitch. It had to be a joke, right? The first dozen reviews were pretty standard, but it was the last that caused me to bolt upright. The customer complained that the camera was on a time delay, sometimes as much as 15 minutes. I went back to the video and pressed play with shaky fingers. I watched in horror as the man slithered under my bed, giving the camera a wink before disappearing in the darkness. Then I saw myself enter the room and climb in bed before the video ended. Now I'm sitting in bed, knowing he's under it. I could call the police, but I doubt I'd have time. So please do yourself a favor and
here are all the horror movies that released this week and where you can watch them. Hauntology, you can rent this on video on demand. This is an anthology horror about this older sister who takes her runaway sibling on a road trip to share the most chilling tales surrounding their very haunted hometown. Voice of Shadows, you can rent this on video on demand. Emma stands to inherit this estate, but only if her and her boyfriend abide by these very bizarre set of rules. The Substance, you can watch this one in theaters. A fading celebrity decides to use a black market drug, which is a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. Evoking Yale, you can rent this on video on demand. This is set in the 1990s, and it's the story of these three women who are venturing into the woods to shoot a demo tape for their black metal band, but then things take a very dark, sinister turn out there. Lord of Wolves, you can rent this on video on demand. When his housemate dies under very mysterious circumstances, Nick inherits this weird pyramid-shaped contraption that was left at the scene, but it unwittingly summons a cult of wolf-like people that live in the underbelly of London. Novelties, you can watch this one on Tubi. When two siblings return to their childhood home, they are confronted by a very violent supernatural presence that dwells deep within their worst traumas. Last Straw, you can rent this one on video on demand. A small town unaliving spree lands on the doorstep of this rural diner where a young waitress must fight for her life over the course of a very long night. Never Let Go, you can watch this one in theaters. This family has been haunted by this evil spirit for years, but one day their reality and surroundings come into question when one of the children wonders if the evil is even real. And lastly, The Shade, you can rent this on video on demand. Following the loss of his father, a grieving 20-year-old struggles to hold his family together as this unspeakable darkness plagues his older brother.
Dear Santa, I don't know if you're real or not, but I'm begging you to bring me a doll for Christmas. If you don't bring me a doll, I will have to ask the devil for it. That was a lot. So there was a lady named Anna, and this happened to her when she was 8 years old back in the 80s. She says that at the time she lived in Mexico with her mom, dad, and her grandmother. At the time, they didn't have a lot of money and they lived in a very poor neighborhood. Sometimes they didn't even have enough money for the most basic things that they needed at home. She remembers that it was around the holiday season and she would see a lot of kids out on the street, playing with their new toys and things that are being gifted to them. Even at the age of 8 years old, she knew that she wasn't gonna get anything for Christmas. She knew that her family didn't have enough money to buy gifts. But even with no hope in the world, she still wrote her letter to Santa Claus on the 24th of December. Dear Santa, I don't know if you're real or not, but I'm begging you to bring me a doll for Christmas. If you don't bring me that doll, I will have to ask the devil for it. She says that in her innocence, she thought that by threatening Santa Claus, it would motivate him to bring her the doll that she really wanted. She said that that night they had a family dinner, they ate, and they went to bed. But right before she went to her bedroom, she said that she looked at that Christmas tree and she just begged it to have a gift when she woke up in the morning. The next morning when she woke up, the first thing she did was run to that Christmas tree and she stood there in shock. She couldn't believe it, and in that very moment she screamed so loud that her grandmother and her parents came running into the living room thinking something had happened. But her scream was of happiness because under the Christmas tree there was a box, and inside that box was a doll. The doll was just as big as her, and it was the most beautiful doll she had ever seen, and she just remembers how her parents and grandmother were looking at her and they were just so happy because she got a doll for Christmas. She said that day was one of the happiest days of her life, but it was only because she didn't know the hell that they were about to go through. As time went on, she started to notice really weird, strange things about the doll. At nighttime, she would always place the doll in the box that it came in because she didn't want it to get dirty. However, every time she would wake up, the doll would be sitting in a chair at the end of her bed. I already have chills. She says that one day her entire family went out and they were coming back home. And when the door opened, every single person saw when the doll ran from the living room all the way to her bedroom. Oh my god, I have goosebumps. Can you imagine? Like every single one of her grandma, her mom, her dad, they all saw the doll run to her room. In that moment, out of like pure terror, her mom fainted and fell to the ground. And her grandmother just started praying. She was also terrified of what she had just seen. In that moment, they can hear where things were falling and breaking inside her bedroom. The dad, with all the courage he had, decided to go in there and check it out. What the dad saw when he walked into her bedroom was the doll sitting in that same chair and everything in her room just destroyed. That same night, the grandmother confessed to her parents that on December 24th, she took all the money she had, which was only 30 pesos, and she was on a mission to buy a gift for her granddaughter. She was having no luck finding a store or anybody that can help her until she came upon just like a whole bunch of trash. And in that trash was the doll. She couldn't believe that she found like the most beautiful doll just in that trash, and she ran back home to put that doll under the Christmas tree. So the following day, her parents took the doll and they went to go throw it as far away as possible from their home. Unfortunately, the next day, that doll was inside of their house again. She mentions how the next following days, her parents tried a lot of different things to try to get rid of this doll, and it would always come back to their house. But that wasn't even like the worst thing, because they started to experience paranormal things in their home. They would hear footsteps, some things would just like move by themselves, and they started to hear like little kids laughing. The family became desperate and they brought a witch to the house to help them. When that witch saw the doll, she told them that she did not have enough power for what they have in their house. She could not help them. However, she did tell them that that doll was possessed by a demon. She says that her mom, in the desperation to get rid of this doll, ended up going to a church that was around their neighborhood. When she got to the church, she stumbled upon a priest who was lighting up candles or incense, I think that's what she said. And she ended up telling him everything that was happening in their home, and the priest agreed that he would visit their home at nighttime that same day. The priest, his name was Ezequiel Monteverde, and told her she would go to their house at 8 p.m. And at 8 p.m. on the dot, he showed up to their home. The second that priest stepped into their home, it got so cold, it almost felt like a freezer inside of their home. The priest walks to her room, sees the doll, and tells her parents that it does not matter how many times you take the doll out, it was gonna end up coming right back. He said it was because the demon that was inside of that doll was very powerful. She said the craziest thing happened. The priest told her parents that the only way that they were gonna get rid of it was to form an exorcism on the doll in order to return the demon back to where it came from. It was the most intense thing that she had ever experienced in her life. She remembers the priest taking out the Bible, taking a cross out, and some holy water. But the priest took 2 hours in the room with the doll, and in the meantime, the lights would flicker, things were moving on their own, and there was also a point where that doll was almost like convulsing by itself. What the fuck? She remembers when the priest finally tells it one last time, "I order you to leave this doll and leave this family alone." She remembers when he said that sentence, all the lights went out. However, there was an immense sense of peace in that home. The priest also kneeled down and started praying, and then just like nothing, stood up, grabbed his Bible, holy water, the cross, and the doll, and left their home. She said that she remembers her mom running to their bedroom and getting like the littlest bit of savings that she had and attempted to give it to the priest, but he was like, "No, I don't need your money, it's okay." So the next day, the mom was so happy that everything had been peaceful in their home that she had gone to the supermarket and brought a lot of fruit. She decided to make like a fruit cup, and she was gonna go and take it to the priest just as a thank you for what he did for their family. When she got to the church, she saw another priest at the door, and she asked him where she could find the priest Ezekiel so that she can give him the fruit. However, the priest was like, "Lady, is this a joke?" And she was like, "No, I would like to give him this fruit as a thank you." And that's when the priest told her, "Lady, priest Ezekiel has been dead for over 10 years.
Last night, I got to see the world premiere of Terrifier 3 at Fantastic Fest, and holy shit. When Damien Leone says the first 10 minutes of this film is going to be controversial, you should listen. A lot of people are not gonna like what they see, but if you're anything like me, you're gonna absolutely fucking love it. And I know the big question's gonna be, but does Terrifier 3 top the bedroom scene in Terrifier 2? Here is my official non-spoiler answer. While there might not be one scene in Terrifier 3 that tops the bedroom scene in Terrifier 2, this entire film from beginning to end absolutely rips. Like, I don't think there is one single throwaway unaliving in this film. Every single one in this movie is unique. It pushes boundaries. And there were legit a couple of times that the audience was just like, oh my God. There will be haters, but for anybody that's already a fan of the Terrifier franchise, get absolutely fucking hyped, because Terrifier 3 absolutely fucking rips.
This was one of the first TV shows ever, and it was pure evil. During the late 1890s, a man named Dan D. Lyons created and hosted a TV show where contestants would spin a wheel that had a list of wild animals on it, and whichever one it landed on, you would be trapped in a box for 24 hours for a chance to win $1 million. But the thing was, nobody really ever won, because the animals ranged from lions, tigers, and bears, and they were always left hungry before the competition started. But there was one big secret. The show told the contestants that the animals were fake and just a person in a suit so that they would feel more comfortable during the filming. But that was far from the truth. At the beginning of every episode, it would say on screen that the show was fictional, but it was in fact very real. But in the year 1899, a man named Mo DeGrasse became the first winner of the competition, surviving 24 hours with a grizzly bear. This actually made Dan upset because he didn't want to give Mo any money. So he offered Mo a double or nothing deal, but he quickly declined and was actually very angry because he was lied to about the animals being real and was actually in serious danger the entire time. When they let Mo out, he confronted Dan and said, "I will let everyone know the truth about this show." This made Dan just as angry, and he lunged at Mo, but missed and ended up falling 15 feet into the box with the grizzly bear. And this time he wasn't as friendly.
The dad in Inside Out 2 is Andy's dad in Toy Story.
Wait, how?
So
wait, so he has a new family?
Yeah. No, did you realize in Toy Story, I think it was 3, how Andy's dad moved and bought a new place and they all moved out?
Oh, yeah.
Just randomly.
No, and he had a new family.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember now.
So remember how if you really bag in the movie, look at Andy's dad, I mean Riley's dad, and look at Andy. Without the beard, they look identical. Yeah. And no, this is where it gets crazy. In the movie, like, there's core memory balls, right?
Yeah.
And Riley's core memories, she was in a playground. The same, remember in Toy Story 3 where they escaped the bear?
Yeah,
the big bear? The same playground that they escaped was in Riley's core memory.
Oh.
So it was
so she was there.
Yeah, so it was hints of Toy Story / Inside Out 2.
Oh,
which is
it's
like,
all connected. It's all connected. We didn't see Andy's dad at all.
I don't think so. Because he
never
moved.
saw Andy's dad.
He moved. He ended up impregnating the girl's mom in Inside Out 2, which led to Riley.
Speaking of Australia, they had the first person to ever be frozen.
What do you mean?
Cryo chamber.
It's wild, dude.
And like, he woken up later?
For the first time, they've successfully defrosted brain tissue. For a long time, it was really hard to come out of frozen, but they've successfully been able to like reawaken brain tissue.
That sounds terrible.
So here it is. The man's 80 years old. The company calls Patient 1. He died this month and underwent the complex process to be cryogenically frozen with the hope of coming back to life in the future.
Wait, but how can it resuscitate your life?
That's my thing. That's even scary.
As long as they...
Oh, so like if technology develops enough to where they'll unfreeze him, there's no way. He's dead.
They're put into a cooling chamber filled with liquid nitrogen at negative 190 degrees at Celsius. So I don't know what that is, but that's like...
we're not going to do that.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Then he's transferred into a vacuum. He's vacuum sealed. Oh, no.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either.
Is he really frozen?
Maybe, I don't know, but they say it's a myth.
Did you see that one commercial? I think we talked about it before. And they literally showed like Walt Disney coming out of a chamber of him being frozen.
They're just laying into a joke because they talk about it. It's like a joke.
I don't know, man.
Make a wish. Make a wish. Make a wish.
And many more.
Right.
Woo!
Almost.
Whoa! Alright, Jackie.
All right, here, honey. The girl's got to have a present. This is from me. Yeah. Yeah. Jackie, present's pass.
Hey, kiddo. Hope you're doing well. I'm feeling much better now, so whenever you can. Hey, kiddo. Hope you're doing well. I'm feeling much better now, so whenever you can, just come visit me, okay? Okay?
Shut up. No way.
That has not worked. That has not worked.
I just missed a call from my dad. I just heard his voice one more time.
This guy took a video of his neighbor's window and saw this. Why are there so many flies? Well, most likely there is a dead body in there. So I went in his other videos to look for an update. And then 3 days later, the flies are still there and there's no context. Did this guy call the police? Did he let anyone know? This is crazy.
These identical twin brothers were pure evil. During the 1950s in the hills of Kentucky, there were two brothers named Gumbo and Darby who were identical twin brothers. They lived on a giant ran-down property with their mother named Little Bertha. Over the years, the brothers were nothing but trouble in the community and were disliked by everyone and would spend time in and out of jail. But one day in 1956, their mother Bertha was not feeling well, so they contacted a local doctor named Russell Sprout to come in and help. But just after a few minutes of being there, Bertha unfortunately passed from her illness. When the brothers found out, they became very upset, and after a few moments of grieving, they stopped and looked at Russell and said, "You hurt Mama." Russell tried explaining to them that she was in very poor health and there was nothing he could have done. but they kept saying, "You hurt Mama." But this time, they were walking towards Russell and were very angry. Russell attempted to run away but was grabbed and then taken down to the basement cellar. To Russell's surprise, there were already people down there, and it was other towns' people who went missing in the previous months. After a few days in the basement, the brothers eventually came down and asked for a volunteer to help move their mother out of the house and into the backyard. Seeing this as a chance to escape, Russell agreed to help. When he got to the top of the stairs, he made a run for it away from the brothers and made it to the front door, but quickly realized it was nailed shut. Moments later, he heard the brothers' voices right behind him say in unison, "You're about to meet Mama again.